It was a normal day in New York. Leo, a 25-year-old young man, was walking with his friends Oliver and Daniel. Daniel and Oliver had been his best friends since they were in school together. Leo itself was belonged to a very rich family. His grandfather founded an electronic company and that was running by his father, James. And that even though James, his father, had expecting that Leo to have been taking care of the company within the next few years, since he had plans to retire within the next 5 years or so, and that he had hope that Leo would have been married and perhaps even have a family of his own but before he retires. Oliver had been asking Leo if he had found someone to be with since Leo sometimes even comment that his father tried to find him a girlfriend to be with, even that he's despite doesn't want to, he was not even interested in dating a girl at the moment, despite knowing that he has to one day to take care of to to inherit the company since his family is a billionaires and he doesn't even want to be bothered being found some girl to be with at the moment though, because he likes to be free as a single. But one that is day though, something would change his life from this normal life to more different. Because when he arrived home, he said goodbye to his friends as they continued walking to their homes. Leo was very surprised that his father was home from his business, and in fact, he saw he was had a company in his work study, or in his private study room. It was in fact a girl, but the same age as Leo. Leo was so surprised, and he asked the butler what the girl was doing there, and what the butler explained that his father had asked her to come there. And it turned out that her family was well known and was has a strong connection with the finance system. That and one of that, her father was also a good friend to James. So in other words, Leo could already figure out that James, his father, had tried to convince his friend to maybe that Leo would date his friend's daughter to turn out to be by the name Charlotte. Even though that Leo thought she was very beautiful, but still told his father that he was not even looking for any date. But his father was very strict in this. Leo, you had to figure out since you are young and old, but you're getting older, and you will need to settle down. Including your grandfather was about your age when he settled down and got married. That was years ago. And you was even he's my age when you got married. You was even a bit older. Well, I was only 2 years older, but that is not the matter. At least give Charlotte a try, chance of improving that. She is a nice girl. All right, Dad, I will try to give it a chance. Okay. So James introduced Charlotte to Lee, and they would start talking. And even though he was not very interested in this dating service or dating life, he preferred to be single, so that he can prefer to spend time with his friends or his own personal interest. But he wanted to make his father happy about this, at least. So he agreed. But he said that he won't take her out until Friday since this is only Wednesday. Of course, she agreed to do so, so they gave each other's phone numbers so they can text or call when they at any point. But even that same evening, Leo was talking to his friend Isabella. Isabella and Leo had been best friends ever since first grade. Despite that Isabella's family was a working class, Leo used to go to an ordinary, just a normal school system rather from an international school or a person's private school. Leo, he didn't want to go to a private school at first because he didn't like it. When he saw his friend Isabella actually were having so much fun in an already public school, and he asked his father if he could go to a public school. But as long as he goes and that he shows good result of his grades, he will allowed to stay. And which he did. Because Leo did focus seriously on his studies when he was growing older. And now he was out of college. He was really surprised about he was had no one to figure out what to do in his life. He had even doubts if he wanted even to run the family company, since he would be the third generation in his family to run this company. Even despite his father now is currently the vice president or the president of, or the CEO of the company. But his grandfather was not like his father because he was more outspoken. He was more gentle. Or he was more accepting about things, but unless his father is. But even though when Leo told Isabella about this girl, Charlotte, she even asked if she could see a picture of her, just in case if she knew about her. Unless, and she said that she looks cute, but she doesn't even know anything about her since she never seen her before. Maybe that she went to a private school, and since that would make sense, since if she hasn't been seen not around much in town, and later it turned out that she went to a private school, a private girls' school when she was in her early years, and that now she was, and that she had recently even finished her college, but not only by a year earlier, and now she was just doing some different work from time to time. And a couple of days later, Leo went with Charlotte to a date, and normally it seems to be what's going to be working. They seem to have such things much in common, like the type of same music, the type of movies, the games, like that. Despite them hadn't even grew up or even seen each other when they was young, he seems to be enjoying her company and was willing to give her a chance of being her boyfriend. And even after about a couple of months, their dating was still strong, that they had spent so much time together. It is point when they couldn't see each other, but they always text or even call each other at the evenings or in the mornings, like saying hi and see how I miss you, something like that. And she actually gave him the space if he needs said that he needs some time off, time for himself to be thinking, or that he needs time to do something with his family or friends. And yeah, she agreed to do so. And he had even introduced her to his best friend Oliver and Daniel. Even both actually seems to like her, except for Daniel. He did mention something about there was something off about Charlotte. And when Leo asked him for especially how odd, but Daniel could even specify exactly what kind of how odd this odd feeling. But he was just happy to see that his friend had found someone to be with, at least from that point. Things between Leo and Charlotte seems to be working perfect between them. Like things was going quite well. But there were some things when Charlotte suddenly some days stopped talking to him. They didn't have any arguments or any fights or like that. Just one day they were just having a normal conversation, but the next day Leo didn't heard her from her for sometimes from between 24 to maybe 48 hours straight without no contact. He can call her from time to time, maybe not every single hour, but maybe it's a couple of times in a day, or maybe send her at least a couple of text messages asking her if she was okay, if because he was getting worried. when he asked around about Charlotte if anyone had seen her, but no one had basically been seen her. None of their friends, or maybe not even her friends, had seen her or heard from her. Or at least one of them, her friend Miss said, claim had said that she was okay, that she's been busy with her family for them part of the day. So, and if she was busy with her family, why didn't she just mention that, so that he had to get so worried? And the first time it happened, she said that there were actually some family, or that her phone was off because she had some problem with the phone, which makes sense. After all, even though Leo's phone sometimes happens, sometimes even this pattern didn't even repeat so often. So Leo didn't put much of this to his side, and he thought maybe things like this happens. But one day, when he was with Isabella at the park, they were just talking when suddenly, when Charlotte was walking by and saw him, she wasn't even acting angry or like that, because he had even introduced Isabella to Charlotte for at least once before. And all mentioned that they are childhood friends and that they don't see each other as just more as friends. But even the same evening when Leo was back home, he got a call from Charlotte. She was like demanding to know why he's spending so much time with his best friend Isabella rather from being with her. But he's still trying to explain that she's just a friend of his. And but then suddenly she almost saying, if you want going to be with me, you will spend less time with her and more time with me. And but I'm okay if you spend time with your guy friends, but your female friends, are you trying to get me jealous about something? That was actually the very first time that she had said anything like it. But he said no. I mean, she's just a friend of mine. I see her like a sister, or at least as one of my best friends. I'm sure you have several best friends as well. Yeah, but I don't get jealous when it comes to that. But listen, Charlotte, I don't get jealous if you spend time with your guy friends, but this is strange because you were never acting like this even after the first time you met her. No, because I thought it's just a friend of yours, but since I found out you spend more time with her even with me, and for the first time, he was very amazed at how much she was trying to making him feel guilty. But it didn't work because he had been experienced like this kind of things back when he was in college and even before that. Look, I will try to spend more time with you and less time with her. But if she wants to have me to talk to her over phone or something, that I will have to do because she relies on me as her friend, and if she needs help with something, I will have to be there to help her. Okay, I am fine with that, said Charlotte. But listen, but if she tried to hit on you, try to at least telling her you already take it. She knows that, and she would even try to hit on me. Well, let's say if you get drunk, or and you're on a party and she is so drunk at you, and so she tries to hit on you and she doesn't take it well and like that. Or even if both of you get drunk. Okay, well that could happen. But first, Charlotte, you know I don't party at that much. And if I even do drink, I don't drink that much. You know that. I know, but let's say this has happened. Well, it could, but it probably never even happened, okay? I'm sorry, I have to go now. It's getting late. I have to help my father at the company tomorrow. And even then, Leo still didn't see any sort of red flags or any warning signs about something about this could be more as past as just strange event. So he didn't put this much in his thought about it. But even after all this, there was something about Charlotte's behavior later on that was solely slowly showing red signs that something was getting off. Because one day at the company, James and Leo were in his office talking about Charlotte, and James then asked about Leo if how things are going between her and between him and Charlotte. Leo said that things are going quite well between them, that nothing as serious has happened, or no arguments, no fights. Even despite this, his father explained that he had hoped that he would perhaps get married with Charlotte sometimes within the next year. But that was something Leo refused to even happen. First of all, his own father dated his mother for 5 whole years before they even got married. And his own grandfather dated his grandmother, Leo's grandmother, when he was about also for about 5 to 6 years before they got married. And Leo and Charlotte had even been dating that for only for a couple of months, and expecting to get married after once 1 year. So Leo demanded to know exactly why so soon, and it turned out that his father had tried to maybe try to speed up the process so that he can retire so that Leo could take over the company. But then Leo, by questioning like this, like, but Dad, what if I don't want to run take over the company? Leo's father was just shocked. You don't want to take over the family company? What is wrong with you? Please, Dad, I didn't say I wouldn't. I said only if I was not even want to do it. You don't have to be exploding it because of that kind of question. Is that crazy enough? But his father was not really happy about this supposed if. You will take over the company, and that will be your son's duty as well, when he's older. That you will do it, and that is the final. You will get married to her within the next year or so. But that, no, Dad, listen. If I don't even get married to her by next year, or perhaps even the year after, right? Give me time to get to know her better. And even if I do propose to her, and it's up to her to decide if she wants to even get married within the next year or so. I can't force her. You know that. And that was something his father at least agreed to do. If she doesn't even want to get married with you next year, but I hope you do have to do it at the year after. Well, that at least if they will want to hang around for 5 years, that would be fine to me, right? But his father said no. You will be married with her soon if I had to make this difficult for you. And how difficult would it be? Well, I will try to tell her to do this, to ask you to get married to her as soon as possible. That was something Leo could not even sort of question or even to require answer for, because he knew his father would explode in his face about screaming, so he didn't question about it, and he just said, "Fine, right," and then he left the office. But after he left the company, he immediately called Isabella. He wanted to know if they could if they could see each other, and that they needed to talk. And she agreed, and she was home. So he went to her home, and of course she was home alone. "What is wrong?" "This is my dad," Leo said. "Let me guess. He wants you to marry Charlotte so soon." "Yeah, you hit the head on the nail," said Leo with a laugh. "I don't get it. It's like my own father and dad married my mom, but they have been dating for 5 years, and my grandfather for 5 to 6 years. And now he wants me to marry her, Charlotte, after less than a year. What are you expecting me to happen? And what if this little marriage would even last, though? What happened if she divorced me after 1 or 2 years? What happened then?" "Yeah, that's something that would happen. But Leo said that he doesn't even care about that. when he said that what if he didn't want to even take over the company, his father was quite mad about this even suggest idea. But he said it wasn't even not even an idea, it was only a like a thought. Not more than that, but his father didn't care. Isabella tried to convince him maybe not to think about much about that and gave him some ice cream so he can really calm down. And for the next couple of hours, they just watched some movie or small talk about that. And when he had to go home, Charlotte called him, and of course they had their regular talking about future, what he had done today, something like that. But Leo did not mention about this his conversation about with his dad earlier that day because he didn't know how Charlotte's reaction would say that if they had to get married another within a year. But when he actually brought this topic up, though, because he wanted her to be told, he was expecting the same reaction as he did to her dad, his dad. But when he expecting but the opposite, she said that she probably would get married to him after a year or 2 years. But Leo was not happy with that answer. Charlotte, I thought maybe you would at least agree with me to wait at least a couple of years before you even get married. But Charlotte didn't say much about that idea at all because she said, "Well, I love you more than anything, and I want to be with you. I want to be your wife. So, are you going to propose to me or anything?" She laughed. Even that laughter, even though that was like instant, but something about it, Leo couldn't even put it. Well, I hadn't even considered being proposing to you. What? Never? She screamed on the phone. Wait. I didn't mean like never. We had only been dating for a couple of months. I I need some time to even to think about it, okay? Like how to even to do it. Like such how we even to way to do it. Oh, I thought you know exactly you weren't going to do it. Well, I would, but I just don't know exactly how to do it. And since we haven't even been dating that long, I probably would wait at least maybe a year or so. And she agreed. And she said that she will wait for the rest of the year, but sometimes next year when he will do it. So for the next couple of days, Leo tried to figure out a way out of this problem. Like, try to convince his father if wait at least a couple of years been performing. It's the same thing with Charlotte. But as he could see from Charlotte's side, she was not very excited to get married with him as soon as possible. There was something about that was not very, at least a good moment for him. When he told Oliver and Daniel about this, they were really surprising about this. Because none of them had any idea what to expect. But when he asked for their advice or their suggestions about how what to do, but both Leo and Daniel, Oliver and Daniel, had basically no answer except they said both you should wait to at least by the end of next year to propose to her. Maybe do it some romantic way. Maybe a dinner or a romantic dinner or something. Yeah, probably, said Leo, but even despite he was not really happy about the answer, but at least his friend he had given that. So when his father came home that same evening, he told him that. And even despite his father had hoped that he would get married by the next year, but if he had to wait another year after that, so he was fine with it. And wouldn't fight. Even though that he wanted to have his grandfather's idea because he haven't even spoken to his grandfather much lately. But when he did talk to him, he was really surprised that his own son had tried to force Leo into getting married as within a year. But since he was still a very much high up member in the company's board, so He could not, even though despite he had still right own much of a company and he could easily fire his own son. But he didn't do anything because he didn't want to risk his own his own grandson's happiness. But after a while, though, Leo had started feeling that maybe that Charlotte wasn't the right girl to be with. But he couldn't even telling that to his own father because he knew that his father James would not be as happy. Because if he even just brought up the topic at all, he would be screamed at. So he didn't even do it. So the rest of the year, things between Leo and Charlotte was normal. But then, by next year, Leo had been given one option now. Get married soon as possible by his father so he can retire as soon as possible. And of course, Leo tried to extend the time as much as possible because he needed just some time to figure out how to do it. But his father gave him at least by the end of early June to proposing to Charlotte. So at least he was given a couple of months more to find a way to do so. Even that, Leo actually took with Charlotte to a restaurant and proposed to her, and she said yes immediately. But even when he did it, he felt almost immediately regretted to even to ask that because there was something in his gut feelings that sounds like saying, "Leo, you shouldn't propose to her. She's not the one for you. Listen to your own feelings." But there was nothing that he can do. He ignored it. When he told Daniel and Olivia, Isabella, and Oliver about this big news, they were really surprised that he actually went through the plan at all. They were expecting that he probably would have waited a little bit more time, trying to ask for more time from his father, but never happened. But it was about this time when Leo had realized he was no longer in love with his Charlotte. He didn't even love her anymore. He didn't, but he refused to tell anyone, especially his close friends, about this. But there was one other thing. He had realized he was in fact in love with Isabella. Isabella has been there all the times, in a bad, bad, in a bad, good and bad things that happened. Especially when he lost his own mother when he was a few years ago. But this was now he realized that he was in love with Isabella, and he wanted to be with her. But now he was engaged with Charlotte. But things were going to get even much worse for Lee this time. Now his father was really excited and pleased that he was getting married, but there were about this that will turn all things for Leo from good to worse. He was actually happy to see that Charlotte was happy. She was actually spending some time with her best friend, trying to plan for the wedding, like to find the right wedding dress and to find the right place, the right church, and the right food to be served, and the right cake and everything. Even though that his father tried to convince him to spend time with his fiancée to find some place to help her with this, like find a good suit, which he had done with his grandfather. But he mentioned it to his grandfather. What if his Charlotte wasn't even the right girl to be with? Not only doing this, maybe he's only doing this to make his own father happy for once. And his grandfather said, "If you don't love her, you should tell your father." But grandfather, listen, if I don't tell him, he will get nuts. He will go crazy. You know how he reacts. And he probably wouldn't even allow me to listen to me at all. He would not even, now he's so happy to say that he will one day soon to retire so I can take over the company. What should I even do? I don't know if I even love her anymore. But his grandfather told him to at least listen to his heart, to what to do. That's the only option and that's the only advice he could give. But Phoenix was getting a lot stranger for the next couple of days even after that. Because since they had always set a date, like June 8th at their wedding. But now there was only about less than a week. There was only about like a week before the wedding supposed to be taking place. But one day when Charlotte was to the hair stylist to get her hair fixed or just get her manicures like that, she was talking to one of her friends and said, "Oh, do you really love him, this guy, Isabella, Charlotte?" Of course not. I'm only getting married to him so that I can get to part of their huge fortune. You know how much they work? They're like billions. If I marry him, I will get access to half of his money when I divorce him. And I will actually try to divorce him after about perhaps 6 months or maybe a year, saying that I was unhappy, I was not even, and that I will have right to half of his money so I can actually live with my true boyfriend that I have been seeing. And it turned out she was also those called gold diggers. Only pretended she was in love with Leo, but only wanted his money, and that she in fact had a boyfriend. No, she had a fiance all this time. She had been engaged with this guy for about 2 years by now, and that she was planning to use that money from her divorce so that they could get married and live happily and live without any problems financially. But Leo was actually found out about this, but not himself directly. But it turned out that one of the workers was in fact Isabella, but and Charlotte, she had no idea. She didn't know that Isabella worked there, but she was actually having her back turned, and she actually had her hair cut short, so that she didn't recognize her at first, and or even at all. When she was heard about this, she actually felt very, very upset. She wanted just want to go up to Charlotte to say, "How dare you to break his heart like that? He's just the most sweetest, the most kindest, generous person I ever know, and you're only using him for his money? How dare you? You're just a losing gold digger." But she didn't. She didn't want to make a scene, and if she did, Charlotte would have told Leo, or at least Isabella would have told Leo, and Charlotte was trying to explain that nothing like that happened. She was lying. How would she put that how would he believe his own fiancée against his own friend? There's no proof. But she acted like nothing happened. And after work though, she went back home as normal, but when she was home, she called Leo immediately. But unfortunately, he didn't answer. He was busy with some at work at home. But when he did answer only about an hour later, he got so upset. He was royally upset when she told him that she was only using him to get his money. And even though she could actually confirm, because one of the co-workers who actually were close to her was one of her close friends also worked there, and she could confirm that did take place, that she actually said every single word. And Leo, he was devastated, but at least he knew for sure that Charlotte wasn't the girl that he was expecting to. And he asked if he can come over to her place by the next day so they can talk. And she said yes. By early next day, though, Leo left his home and walked over to to Isabella's home, and she was home alone by the time, since she had a time off from her work. She was now seeing how upset and how much hurt Leo was. But then he dropped another bomb that he wasn't even in love with Charlotte anymore, and that he was now in love with someone else. And Isabella asked, who? At first, he didn't want to explain this girl we. He wanted to keep it a secret. But even when she asked once again if she could, because she wouldn't even tell anyone, then he said that the only one he loved more than most was in fact Isabella. That shocked her. She asked if this was the truth, because she didn't like to be lied to, like himself though. But since he actually told her when she looked at him, she could see that in fact Leo was telling the truth all along. First of all, Leo has never lied to her before. So why would he start lying to her now? And he said that he will tell Charlotte that their engagement is over. And he decided to do that the same day at the park. Because after he left Isabella's home, he went to the park, called Charlotte, and asked her today if they could meet at the park near Leo's home. And of course, she said yes, and she didn't expect anything serious was going to take place. That they were just wanted to spend time with her before the wedding, since the wedding itself was about to take place within a couple of days. But when she came, he acted just normal and stood by a tree. And when he said, Charlotte, I have to ask you something, and please be completely honest about this. Yeah, okay. What is it? Do you even love me? Do you? Yeah, of course I do. Don't lie to me, Charlotte. I know you're only marrying me so you can get my money for my family. You will divorce me again so that you can go get married with your secret fiance. Tell me I'm not wrong about this. First of all, she was silent. Now she knows her plan has been found out. But before she could even answer, she asked how, or at least where he did find that out, or at least heard about it. He told her Isabella had told him because she was at the hairstylist when she was there getting her hair cut. And she told her Isabella had told him about it. Every single word. And one of her co-workers actually confirmed every single word was the truth because she had even recorded part of this talk on her phone. When Leo played the message, this recording, and then once and then she tried to explain that it wasn't even true at all. She tried to make an excuse that she was just back. She was just telling you some joke. There's an old joke. She couldn't even know that Isabella was even working there. But Leo did not even believe a single word from Charlotte. And he said, Charlotte, our engagement is now completely cancelled. I don't want to even see you or even hear from you again. And from that, I will never even want to marry you at all. I didn't even love you anymore at all. Because even before this came to my attention, I had stopped loving you for weeks. And I didn't even want to marry you at all in the first place. This was actually my own father trying to force me to do this. So I don't want to see or hear you again. Is that complete understanding? But she was silent. She knew that her plan has been failed. But he didn't give her time to even answer because after that, he just turned around and left. But then on his way, he called his father and said, Dad, I have something to tell you. Um, I'm kind of busy at the moment now. Leo, if it's none of my work, said James. Dad, the wedding is off. What? Said his father. What are you saying? How you called off the wedding? Why? Why? He demanded to know, with an angry tone. I called off the wedding because I don't even love Charlotte anymore, and she was only using me, us, to gain access to our fortune. She told that she would divorce me after about a year, so she can get married with her secret fiance. She had a boyfriend for a whole 2 years before a whole year before she met me. She said, "In that I don't even love her anymore. I never did. I only did this because to please you. And for that, I don't even want to see or talk to her anymore. And Dad doesn't even try to make her talk to me, Dad, because I will never even want to speak to her. And the only thing is, I love Isabella. I'm going to propose to her instead." "You will not do that." "Or what? You cut off my company and after the will? Fine. I don't even care. I had all the damn thing I wanted to do. I have the money enough, experience in working, and if that had means that I have to work a normal job, fine. I don't care about that. And I don't even care if you cut out the will and made an outcast or disowned me from the family. Because my mom would have accepted this. You haven't. My grandfather told me to listen to my art, and I have. So for that, fine. Cut out my well. I don't even dare care about it anymore. I didn't want to even run the company. He screamed and fell. But then his father said, "You're not my son anymore. I don't have a son. Never had. Never will." And his call was cut off. For the very first time, Leo felt happy, and he actually went back home. And even though the butler had been given order by his father not to let him inside because he was now not allowed to be there, but he told the butler he's only getting some things that he wants and goes away from her. So the butler at least agreed to that. And since his father said, let him take some things that he wants and leave, make sure he leaves and leaves the key to the door. And the butler allowed that to see that. So Leo took a backpack, some clothes, and some other personal items that he had, and just left. But now Leo was homeless. Where would he go? He had only three other options: Daniel, Oliver, and Isabella. But since Oliver was the one that lived closest, he called Oliver and asked if he could meet at his place. They could talk. It was quite important since Oliver lived with his own father, and he went there. Leo was very happy to see his friend. Oliver saw something was wrong, and he asked for what it was. He actually said every single detail what had happened. Wow, I was surprised that he even did that. Maybe Daniel's feeling was correct about her, and it was right because Daniel did mention earlier that he had some odd feeling about Charlotte, but he couldn't even specify exactly what kind. But since he was right about it, nothing else could do it. So Leo was now homeless. But he asked if he could stay at Oliver's place for at least a couple of days. But his father said that he could stay there as long as possible, as long as he wanted, because he saw him as another son. Because Leo and Daniel and Oliver has always been there for each other, always looked after each other. And even though that Oliver's dad was actually agreed with Daniel, Oliver, and even Leo, like if someone should get married of love, not as for greed. Seeing what greed can lead you to. And the same day, Leo actually met up with Isabella again, and he actually told her what happened. She was not even surprised how his dad would reacted or how how Charlotte even reacted. But he then asked if Isabella would be his girlfriend. She said yes immediately because she realized that she had actually feelings for him. And despite that he lived at Oliver's place for the time being, they actually start dating. And even though, even if there has been about a couple of months after Leo cut off all contact with Charlotte and his own family, except for his grandfather, still talked to him. His grandfather didn't even care if Leo had decided to call off the wedding because his grandfather had a feeling that he wasn't even happy with Charlotte. And now he knows that Charlotte was supposed a gold digger, only after his own money. And he didn't want to even have that kind of person in the family, no matter what. Even despite his grandfather trying to talk to his own son, James, so that they can try to fix and repair the relationship. But James has said that he has no son anymore. And in fact, he had decided to let one of his best co-workers, or at least one of the best workers, to be the next CEO from the company. But that was something his grandfather said no. Since he had done so much things for his own son, or at least his own son, Leo. He had said once again to his grandfather that he doesn't want to have anything to do with the company anymore, or even wanted it at all. So, what happened to Charlotte though? Well, the last thing Leo heard about Charlotte, she actually did later got married with her supposed a secret fiance and left town because they didn't want to stay anymore because they had thought maybe they had a better opportunity for a better life if they left New York for maybe Washington or perhaps anywhere else. What about Isabella and Leo? Well, their relationship remained strong. Even after another 2 more years, they actually got married. Leo was really happy to be married with the one that he loved most of all. Despite that there were some setbacks when Leo's dad didn't even want to be. He was actually allowed to come to the wedding, but he refused to even have see or talk to his own son anymore. But what happened to Leo after he decided he cut out all contact with his family except from his grandfather? Well, he actually opened his own car workshop. And he was actually a very skilled mechanic because during his school and even in college and in high school, he learned a lot of things about cars, how to repair it. And since he opened his own car shop, and including that he even hired Oliver and even Daniel, since both of them had went same program as Leo in school, so they didn't have any problems with that. Even though his grandfather was the only family that he talked to, since he had at least once tried to talk to his father about after this big event happened. But his father had refused to have any sort of conversation with his own son, and especially when Leo announced to his grandfather that he was going to be a great grandfather to twin boys. Leo's grandfather was very excited to be a great grandfather, but it was something that Leo had really hoped. When he announced to his father that he was going to be a grandfather to twin boys, he had hoped this big news would help them repair the relationship they had and that they could start talking again and move on from what happened. But Leo's father James refused to have anything to do with his family, despite that he was going to be a grandfather. But they didn't care though, because they named their boys Max and Noah. They were very energetic and they loved their great grandfather. Even though that they were really good at soccer, which they played often with their dad in spare time, because he focused as much more time with his sons rather than what James did with Leo when he was in their age. James preferred more working at the office rather at a company and only spent some time with his own son, which were sometimes only a couple of minutes, like 10 minutes to maybe as 20 minutes. But after that, he didn't care. So Leo actually had to raise his own self. But only 5 years later, Leo and even Isabella announced they were expecting another baby, and this time a daughter which they named Haley. Haley, though, was really surprised at being very much like her mother. She loved to bake and loved to coloring for her mother, even read books, and she loved her great grandfather. He was like a big teddy bear to her. But even this time, even after when Leo's daughter was born, he tried at least one more time to reach out to his father James. But this time, he didn't even listen at all. Still didn't care that he was having a granddaughter. So Leo left only one message down. If you don't even want to be in care to care, want to care on your own grandchildren, don't even bother to reach out to us in the future. Because we will ignore your calls, your messages, all letters, anything you send to us. You will never be able to see your grandkids ever again. Even after a few years after when their children was old enough, they actually decided to move from New York. Along though, Oliver and Daniel, they also moved with their families. They all moved to another small town in the Midwest, or at least near the Great Lakes, like Michigan, or they thought would be better. They opened a car shop there, and they actually thought Michigan was a better place to live in rather than New York. And even though despite Isabella still had some hope that Leo's father would reach out to them at some point, but he never did. From the last time when he heard from a friend who still lives in New York, his father had retired from the company and that one of his best workers became the next CEO. But never done that, nothing much serious to be in that. Despite though when his father was now retired, he had hoped maybe one time when he can do reach out to his family or his grandchildren, spend time with them. But the only thing he required, only wanted to do was play golf and sit at home and drink his wine or beer or anything like that. But never want to see reach out his own son. And that to him, to Leo, doesn't even bother at all. Because Leo was really happy to be with someone like Isabella, the true love of his life. After all this time, after years earlier when he lost his mother, he had hoped that his own father would take the next to step in to raise his own son as a true parent should be. but he didn't. It was more like the staff itself were raising Leo, not his own father. He was spending more time at the office and not at that. And now, after his own grandfather passed away, he had no connection back home, rather from his own father, which he refused to have any sort of contact with, or the opposite. But now he had his own family, but especially even when he was engaged to Charlotte, a gold digger. He could not even believe it, even now, that she was only dating him because hoping that she would have access to his own fortune. But if that Isabella and Daniel, that Leo would had even broken up, that and Charlotte would somehow returned and trying to marrying Leo, and later find out that he no longer had any access to the fortune. She would immediately break up with him even afterwards. If that happened, Leo would just have a big laugh about it. But now he's happy that that never happened, and that in fact Leo was now happily married with Isabella, the true love of his life, and he knows that his own mother is happy, where would be happy to see him happy with the one he loved the most, and especially to have twin sons and a daughter with Isabella. And for Isabella, this is a life that she could not have been more happier to have. To sharing her life with the one that she loved the most of all, with Leo. And this is how Leo and Isabella found a true love. We got a big family together. The end.